Take two. Hello again, and welcome to the Sonic Boomers podcast. I'm Pete.
And I'm Maureen.
And if you'd like to see our pretty faces instead of just listening to us on the audio-only version of the show, you can go to the Sonic Boomers podcast on YouTube and watch us there and see what you've been missing. And on this edition of the Sonic Boomers podcast, we're talking about your celebrity encounters, because several weeks ago we asked you to write to us and tell us, have you ever met or encountered a celebrity? And we heard from a lot of you.
We sure did. I think that speaks a lot to the part of the country that we're in. We're a stone's throw from New York City. So I think the opportunity for celebrity sightings is greater in this area.
And Maureen and I have also had celebrity encounters, and we'll share those with you at the end of the show. So make sure that you're listening and watching all the way to the end.
Absolutely.
And this might be a good time for you to give us a like and subscribe, because that helps us to defeat the evil YouTube algorithm. It really helps the show. So please like and subscribe. Okay. The first person that we heard from was Nick Googie. Now, just a little background on Nick Googie. We grew up almost across the street from one another. I have not seen Nick since he was a little boy. And he used to ride on the back of my bicycle. And that was the last time that I saw Nick. And here, we are now. I'm a 70-year-old guy. And here we are still hearing from Nick, which I think is
great.
The coolest thing. Nick says he met Paul Cotton, and polka writer and singer of the big late 70s hit Heart of the Night. And he had the honor of using the urinal next to Nick's at the Lone Star Cafe in New York City in 1985. And Nick says, does that count?
I'd say yes.
Yeah, I'd say yes. So thanks for writing, Nick. Good to hear from you. Hope you're doing well.
Okay, then we have from Irish Rain, who says, met this man, kinda, in Manhattan. I was very lost, looking for a club I was supposed to go to. Stopped a few folks, but they couldn't help me. Asked this one guy who started to give me directions. I was walking, and then said, it's about 8 blocks from here. You might get lost. And he proceeded to walk me there, up the stairs, and opened the door, then just left. The guy out in front, maybe a bouncer, asked, how do you know Keanu Reeves? He never said who he was. In 8 blocks, we talked about my job, blues music, where to get the best pizza, and street fairs. But he never said who he was. I think that's cool.
That is cool.
He was kind to walk 8 blocks out of his way, and humble. Asked a bit about me and talked about festivities I might also enjoy, but never once let on who he was.
Yeah, I think that's cool.
Yeah, I do too.
The celebrities can be really regular, while others can be really highfalutin, and they get into that, don't look at me like they say J-Lo is like that.
Yeah.
In fact, a friend of mine who is a very noted morning disc jockey in New York had J-Lo on his show. After the show, he said, I told management, don't ever have that woman on my show again, because she was a total B. So good to hear. Seamus Campbell.
Okay.
Said, an Italian kid, huh? He says, when I was a Trinitarian friar, I attended a 40 hours devotion followed by benediction of the Blessed well, you party animal, at the Blessed Sacrament Cathedral of Mary, Our Queen in Baltimore. The guest preacher for the event was none other than the Most Reverend Archbishop Fulton Sheen. Immediately after the homily by Archbishop Sheen, I darted out of the cathedral to have a cigarette. A few moments into my cigarette, a figure dressed in purple cassock and mozetta emerged. What is mozetta?
The hat.
Oh, that's what that is?
Yeah.
No, I call it a beanie or something. And a mozetta emerges from the side door off the altar and, like a homing pigeon, zeroes in on me. Within seconds, the Archbishop walks directly up to me and says, "May I be so rude as to beg for a cigarette?" Well, Bishop Sheen smoked. I reached into my pocket, took out the pack, and offered one to the Archbishop. He is very thankful and says that his doctors have forbidden him to smoke, but adds, but there's no one around to see. He then invited me and the other friars present to join the reception in the rectory. We went at the invitation of Archbishop Fulton Sheen. I can add another centered around a cigarette. Oh, he has another one. Mm-hmm. I should start smoking. Maybe I'd meet more celebrities. When I was in the seminary, I was able to get the student price tickets to see a production of Leonard Bernstein's Mass at the Boston Opera House. It was directed by Sarah Caldwell. I went, and it was beyond words. During the week, I mentioned to my friend Liz that I had seen this production and how incredible it was. Liz was also a seminarian, so could also get student tickets. We decided to go the following Sunday since it was closing. We trotted off to the Opera House, and we went to the box office for tickets. Then we got the news that there was only one student seat left, so I told Liz to go. I would meet her at intermission. Liz went in. I went down the street to a bar or had a cocktail or two. At intermission, I strolled back to the Opera House and waited for Liz. Of course, I had a cigarette or two. When down Washington Street pulls up this limousine, and out steps Leonard Bernstein. I could have died. Bernstein was wearing a tuxedo. He wore a capa negra, which is a black cape. He walked right past me. I could feel the breeze made by the cape. He got to the entrance into the theater and stopped dead in his tracks. He turned around and walked right up to me and asked if he could have a cigarette. I fumbled and pulled out my pack of Benson and Hedges. Oh my God, Benson and Hedges. Wow.
I forgot about them.
Ultralights, offering him a cigarette. He inhaled a couple of drags and said, I needed that. I'm not supposed to smoke. He then asked me why I was outside, not inside. And I told him the tale of the student tickets. Also said that I saw it the week before. He then said, shall we go in? And I looked at him incredulously. He immediately found an usher and said, get this man a seat. And I was seated in the orchestra. And somebody handed me a trombone. No, no, that's not in there. It's just me being stupid again. Mr. Bernstein thanked me again for the cigarette and told me to enjoy the rest of the show. He was there for the final performance. I will never, ever forget that moment. Just a note, I haven't smoked since July of 2000. Good for you, Seamus. Good for you.
So I guess the moral of that story is always carry a spare pack of cigarettes.
Always
with
have
you.
a pack of cigarettes.
Hey, Kathy Flynn, Dennis, who is her husband, has met a few celebrities in his lifetime. He spoke with Frank Sinatra 2 years in a row at a restaurant in Atlantic City. Frank called him over to chat. He also sat and had a long conversation with Larry Zonka for at least 20 to 30 minutes. Not being football followers, Dennis had no idea who he was and chatted about non-football stuff. After Larry left, the bartender came over to Dennis and asked if he knew who he had been chatting with. Dennis said no, and the bartender told him that that was Larry and that he was there every week and has never sat and talked with someone for that long. Dennis also met Debbie Gibson face-to-face in the line for a pretzel at the old Continental Arena. He had taken our daughter and her friend to the Debbie Gibson concert and went to the concession stand for a pretzel. And who was standing next to him in line? Debbie Gibson. She autographed my husband's ticket because our daughter would never believe he was actually talking with Debbie Gibson.
Wow. I'm blown away that Sinatra called him over to chat.
Yeah.
That totally blows away. Larry Zonka, again, I'm not a sports fan, so,
Yeah.
but Jesus, Frank Sinatra calling you over. Wow. Because as we all know, Frank Sinatra did indeed sit at the right hand of God. We heard from Barbara Ernst. I was dating someone from New York City. She and her father played croquet in Central Park all the time. They had some type of tournament going, and I was there watching. My girlfriend's mother was there as well. We were sitting with a woman between us. Her mom leaned over in front of the woman and said, Barbara, have you met Miss de Havilland? It was Olivia de Havilland. I was dumbfounded. I would be too. Mm-hmm. That Olivia de Havilland, that's
pretty big.
Hollywood royalty.
Yeah.
Yeah. She says, another one. Wait, There's more. I was in New York City spending the night in Soho at a friend's student apartment. They were filming a movie down the street. We got in very late, and I couldn't sleep, so I got up and walked down to see what was up. They kept filming the scene, and they were walking these two gray standard poodles in and out of a building. I was standing on the corner, and there was someone standing next to me. I casually turned, leaned in, and said, "Do you know what they're filming?" I did a double take. My eyes popped out of my head, and I said, "Hey, you're Goldie Hawn." And she said, "I know." No, she laughed, smiled, and nodded. And before I could say anything else, they called her for her shot. She was very personable. I ate dinner with Harry Reasoner. Okay.
There you go.
No further comments on that. So we don't know if Harry was a cool dude or not.
Janet Oberlander Snyder.
Hi, Janet. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah. She had dinner with Neil Young and had drinks with Jonathan Demme.
Right. Who was the director of Silence of the Lambs.
Okay.
And they had some fava beans together.
A little Chianti.
Nikki Summers writes, met Hugh Jackman after one of his performances on Broadway, and he was in The Boy from Oz. Had about a half-hour conversation with him. He had someone from the theater take a picture of us.
And Julie Noe Gouveia, she met Springsteen and his girlfriend at the Thirsty Whale, brought them drinks. It was a Sunday night, and their friends were on stage playing guitar.
Now, my question is, did Julie buy Springsteen drinks, or did they buy Julie drinks?
She bought Springsteen, I think.
Julie, the boss can afford his own drinks. No, that was nice to do. That was nice. Robert J. Carson III. In 1984, when I worked in Manhattan, I took some night classes. I worked on 3rd Avenue and 54th. Classes were over by Columbus Circle, and one day I was running late, and when I got to the building where the class was held, when I was going in, someone was coming out and just about took their shoulder out, started apologizing and going into the building, and he was saying, "No problem." It turned out to be David Bowie and his wife, Imam. He just had a smile on his face when he saw my reaction.
That must be kind of fun to be a celebrity like that. You know, it's kind of like you're in on the joke a little bit, you know?
I think our son and his husband would flip.
I know.
Because they both love Bowie.
They do. Michelle Petruca Sauer. I crossed paths with half my language class with Ernest Borgnine. They shared an elevator at L.A. Airport on her way out from California to Texas. He stood behind and let her go in front. Ephraim Zimbalist was in Monterey, California, and she watched Jack Lemmon act drunk, also in Monterey. And each one of these episodes involved her losing her luggage, so celebrity sightings for her in an airport usually has a bad association.
Thanks for checking in, Michelle. And Cynthia Wickham. I was a technician in a pharmacy in South Orange when one day John Davidson and his wife walked in. I filled his prescriptions while he lived in Maplewood and in South Orange.
Joanne Clayton Weiner ran into Joe Pesci at the A&P in La Valette about 20 years ago. He let me walk ahead of him, first at the door and as we were both leaving.
And Bill Gagan, my old friend Bill Gagan, says both Hank Aaron and Paul McCartney were both very nice, but Tony Bennett was the best.
I know he really enjoyed meeting him.
He loved Tony Bennett, and I think he had the opportunity to see Tony on numerous occasions. But so cool. I think he actually got to go backstage.
I know he had a one-on-one with Tony Bennett. Yeah,
so cool.
Stuart Fisher says he met Maggie Smith and Jack Nicholson.
That's right. Stu, I hope you're doing well. Miss you. Bob August says his celebrity encounter was Pete Torriello. Thank you, Bob. That's very sweet.
Jim
Idachico.
Paul Newman was a great moment in my life and was perfect for both him and his wife.
And Kurt Lang says, All the group members of Chicago had breakfast with them at Tavern on the Green, had Joey Mulholland of Badfinger and the Raz Band stay at our house for a couple of days. And last but not least,
Marilyn McCarthy met Steven Tyler of Aerosmith.
that's cool. That's cool. And now,
She sent us a picture, which
Oh,
maybe,
did she?
maybe we can put up
put
on
it
the
up on
screen,
the,
yeah.
okay. Maureen and I also have had, how many celebrity encounters? Just say,
A few.
okay. Before we do that, though, we would like to ask you if you have not already done so, because, you know, the research says that about 90% of the people who watch the Sonic Boomers podcast are not subscribed. And believe it or not, we're still trying after nearly 5 years of doing this show. We have yet to do 100 subscribers. So we really need your help to get our subscription numbers up. So please take the time to like and subscribe to the Sonic Boomers podcast. And again, we appreciate it. We'll come to your house and we'll do your windows.
We can be your celebrity encounter.
Yeah. So it's time now for us to reveal our celebrity encounters.
Okay. Well, this one is just me. Back when I was in college, I worked part-time in a Cohen's Fashion Optical, which is an eyeglass store that sells frames and get your eyeglasses made in an hour kind of thing. And this guy walks in, and I helped him pick out frames, and he places his order, and he, leaves, and he's going to pick up his glasses when they're ready. Turns out it was Phil Rizzuto, and on the prescription card, all it said was Philip Rizzuto, and I'm not a sports fan particularly. Yeah. I wouldn't know him if I fell over him, and if they said Phil Rizzuto, that name might have clicked with me. But seeing it written as Philip, and I think it was like a middle initial Rizzuto, it just never dawned on me. And then afterwards, somebody's like, "Do you know who that was?" And I was like, "Oh."
Do any of you remember Phil Rizzuto on those commercials? This is Phil Rizzuto for the Money Store.
And didn't he do Mr. Coffee too?
No, that was Joe DiMaggio.
Another time, Pete and I were in the city, and we were eating like a brew and burger.
I think that was before we were even married.
I don't remember exactly, but we were at a brew pub kind of thing, and we're sitting there enjoying our burgers and beer, and this guy comes in and very loud and with this woman, and they're laughing and they're making a big to do, and they came in to the bartender and they asked for straws. And they were just being very loud.
That was all they wanted, right?
Just straws. Being a little naive, it didn't dawn on me what they possibly were using the straws for. I looked at them and I realized that the guy was Chris Christopherson. Mm-hmm. The woman was Rita Coolidge.
And Chris Christopherson only passed recently,
just recently,
too, as I
yes.
recall. Yeah, wow. Now, this is the last one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is the piece of resistance. Or what is it? Pièce de résistance?
Yes.
Pièce de résistance.
Oui, monsieur.
Okay. Several years ago, we're down in Orlando, and we're catching a flight to come home. And we're out in like a
waiting room.
And off in the distance, we see this coffee shop. Our son Mark is looking in the coffee shop. And how old was Mark then?
Oh, I don't know, maybe 12.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Early teens, preteen. And he says, I think that's so-and-so. I'm going to fill in the blank at the very end. I think that's so-and-so. And Maureen and I are like, what would so-and-so be doing here? He goes, Dad, I don't know, but I think that's so-and-so. So I'm looking, and Maureen is looking, and we're like, well, it could be, but what would so-and-so be doing? Sitting alone, by the way.
Right.
No entourage.
No makeup, no
at
nothing.
At the coffee counter and reading the newspaper.
Right.
So I said, well, if that's so-and-so, I said, go up to her very quietly. And I said, her name is actually Dana Owens. Go up to her and just say, pardon me, are you Dana Owens? And
so as not to cause...
So as to not draw a crowd.
Oh, right.
And she says, why, yes, I am. How do you know me? And Mark says, well, my dad works in radio, and he knows that your real name is Dana Owens. Can I trouble you for an autograph? And she says, well, absolutely. I'll be happy to give you an autograph. And as she goes to sign it, she says, but I'm not going to sign it Dana Owens because nobody knows who she is. And so she signed it Queen Latifah. And it wound up that Queen Latifah was on the same plane that we were. And she was absolutely the nicest, no entourage, just her.
Yep.
Not a diva.
Right.
And when she got off the plane, we were at Newark Airport, and a number of kids recognized her. Mm-hmm. And they came running up to her and received them all very graciously.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was probably our biggest celebrity encounter.
I think so.
So we appreciate all of you who took the time to send us your celebrity encounters. And I think for a future show, I don't know what you think, Maureen, we'll put it out to our audience. Maybe you could put it in the comments. Did you ever have a celebrity crush? Right?
That might be good.
I know Maureen's.
Well, I've had a few.
You've had a few. I've had a few.
They've changed through the years.
Yeah. And maybe we'll share that with you if you share them with us. Pete Torriello or Maureen Torriello on Facebook, or you can go to our Sonic Boomers podcast page on Facebook and maybe tell us if you had a celebrity crush somewhere. And we've got a few other good things coming up soon in the pipeline, too, for future shows here on the Sonic Boomers. As in December, we approach our 5th anniversary of doing the show. And maybe send us a couple of ideas on things that we could do to celebrate our 5th anniversary. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Sonic Boomers podcast. And until the next time, I'm Pete.
And I'm Maureen.
Goodbye, God bless you, and thank you. Thank you for
listening
and watching the Sonic Boomers podcast.